Replicate menu can be found down the right hand side under the icon that looks a little bit like a flower. Under the Replicate panel, you'll find 3 different menus. The first is your basic Replicate. Well, I say basic, but there's a lot you can do with it. Let's bring in a shape to start with. I'm currently working with the basic edition, which means when you look at the shape, you don't have a pivot point showing. Let me show you this design in an upgraded version of the software to explain. You'll notice that this time it has a pivot point. What this means is I can rotate at that pivot point and I can move it should I so wish. In the basic edition you won't see the pivot point, but it is there in the centre of your design. Let's start with duplicate first though. You have the ability to duplicate your design to the left, to the right, below, or above. And a single duplication will be created and moved to wherever you've chosen. If you select everything, you also have the ability to duplicate this. So again, it could go to the left or the right, and so on. Each piece is still individual though, because we haven't physically grouped it, which you can do if you want by right-clicking and selecting Group. Rows and columns works in a similar way. So by selecting your shape and then choosing row of 3, row of 4, column of 3 or column of 4 means that you're able to replicate in that particular way. You're also able to select a shape and fill the page. Mirror allows you to duplicate the design, but it will also keep your original. So for instance, mirror below will create an imaginary hinge and replicate the design below. Equally, you can do that above, to the left, and to the right again. And as we've seen before, you can select everything and do the same. Now, let's have a look at this shape. And as I mentioned, I have a pivot point in the centre. The pivot point is fixed to the centre if you are running the basic edition of the software, but as I've upgraded, I'm able to move this pivot point, which I'll show you in a few moments. The first option gives you the ability to rotate copies. So when you are working in the basic edition, it will rotate on that central pivot point. However, if you've upgraded, then there's a variety of things you can do using that pivot point. Rather than moving on that centre axis, we're able to move that pivot point. You also have the ability to move the pivot point away from the shape. What this means is when you replicate your design, that will use that pivot point as a central part of your design. The second menu is Advanced Replicate, and this allows you to replicate your design to whatever figure you so choose. It also gives you the ability for you to place the replications in the same position, to the left, to the right, above or below as we've seen before. There's also the ability to position these on the X and Y axes. Let's get this design to 1 centimetre wide to start with. If I change the offsets to 1.5 and click on Replicate, you can see that the design is replicated in a diagonal motion. Depending on the figure that I've put on there will depend on how close those ellipses are placed together. You also have the ability to replicate at an angle. So I wonder what will happen if we replicate now. The last menu gives you the ability to get your object to follow a path. Let's bring in a path to start with. This is our object and this is our path. When you click on the object and select Show Grab Handles, then the circle will change. If you're working with the Basic Edition, then the circle will appear. Position this circle over your path and the design will be replicated around the perimeter of your path. The path can be any shape you choose. It could even be a letter. You'll notice when you hover over the circle at the top that it changes colour. This gives you the ability to open up your circle and the other circle gives you the ability to increase or decrease the quantity between those points. There's quite a lot to the Replicate menu, so I think we'll cover more in a class. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any other videos that might help you with your Silhouette software.